Today I am going to be your moderator for this panel. We have two panelists today, Eric Smith and Elizabeth Peterson. The panel is Television, Bringing the Outside to the UP. Eric Smith is the Director of Broadcast and AV Services here at NMU. Smith's 39-year career in broadcasting has spanned a variety of work, including television lighting, directing, and serving as executive producer of several regional Emmy Award-winning documentaries covering Lake Superior shipwrecks, alternative energy production, and the UP mining industry. As the general manager of WLUC-TV and FM, he manages NMU's interactive television system that ties university instruction and faculty to K-12 schools throughout the state. Most recently, he has coordinated NMU's conversion to digital broadcasting, worked with university departments in facilitating programs that train multimedia students, and assisted the university with its deployment of wireless 4G broadband internet used to support teaching and learning. Smith has been an active member of the Michigan Association of Public Broadcasters, and as a vice president has played an integral role in focusing the organization on programs that keep public broadcasting relevant now and into the future. In 2014, he received the Professional Pioneer Award from the Michigan Association of Public Broadcasters. Our second panelist, Elizabeth Peterson, is the TV6 morning news anchor. She rejoined the TV6 news team in August of 2020. Originally from the downstate Grand Rapids area, Elizabeth has lived in the Upper Peninsula for more than 18 years. She grew up in the television industry. Her grandmother, mother, and aunt all held various positions at television stations across the country. Watching them, listening to their stories, and spending so much time behind the scenes led her to pursue a career in broadcast journalism. A proud Spartan, Elizabeth graduated from Michigan State University. Go Green. Elizabeth was a reporter and anchor for the TV6 Early News and News Tonight from 2005 until 2009. She also worked for a time as a morning producer and is the first producer and anchor for Fox UP News. Since the first stint at TV6, Elizabeth has worked as the executive director of the Greater Ishpeming and Negaunee Chamber of Commerce, sales manager for the Northern Center at Northern Michigan University, and most recently as a producer and host for WNMU. Elizabeth has been fortunate to work with amazing people over the years, people who have shown her a deeper understanding of what the Upper Peninsula and its residents are all about. She's proud to come back to TV6 with those experiences and uses them to guide her through her role as the morning anchor. News has always been important to Elizabeth, but it has never felt much more important than it does today. She also enjoys backpacking, hiking, traveling, and spending as much time as she can exploring the outdoors with her family and friends. I would like to remind the audience as well that there's the Q&A function at the bottom, so any questions that you have over the course of the panel, feel free to put them in, and at the end there should be around 15 minutes set aside for questions. With that, Eric and Elizabeth, take it away.
Perfect.
Okay. Elizabeth, are you going to go first, or?
Do you want to flip a coin? Whatever you want to
do. Go right ahead.
Okay. So my piece of this is talking, well, if you know Eric, he's the tech guy. So I'm going to let him do the tech stuff because I am not the tech person. Getting this Zoom going was big success for me alone. So he's going to talk about all of those good, fun things. And he's amazing at explaining it in a way that you can understand, which is awesome. So my side of it is talking a little bit more about the news side. And you heard in my bio that I've kind of made the rounds a little bit up here in the news industry. I went to Michigan State. I got my first job in Alpena. The station that I worked for in Alpena bought a TV station in the Upper Peninsula. So that's what brought me to the UP. And then once I was up here, I just fell in love with the area, decided I wanted to raise my family here, and I've stayed. So it's been interesting to grow up in a city. Well, I lived in a small town just outside of Grand Rapids, but in a big city like that in a big news market, and then come up here into a small news market, but to be around a community that is so connected to each other, to news, and the role that all of the news medias play up here is huge, and it's so important, and I've really enjoyed being a part of that. Here at TV6, I had a small stint at WNMU. I worked for Eric, and I absolutely loved that format. The programming they do is more in depth. It allows you to really dive into different topics. And What's really neat though is all of these organizations, the way everyone works together. When I was at WNMU, we did a number of programs with COVID and everything happening. We did a number of programs together, and it was phenomenal. It was a great way to utilize our resources and to work together and to really do something meaningful to the community at the time. So I do have a brief slide show that I will go through. If you have any questions along the way, I don't know if you have to say them to the end, feel free to throw them at me, but we'll kind of just give me a second here to do this. Like I said, Eric's the tech guy. Okay, so then I click this, stand by. Do you see it?
Oh, yes, it's up on the screen.
There's nothing yet?
No, it's working. It's fine.
Oh, it's working. Okay, all right. Okay, so here we go. So we've already gone through that. You did such a great job on my bio. I didn't realize that you're gonna read the whole thing. That was great. So looking at how things have evolved over time, I love this picture because yes, this is how it used to be, but also it's not so different. There's still a lot of households up here that, watch the evening news together before dinner, after dinner. That's how I grew up. I think that was where the passion of news came for me. I watched Eye to Eye with Connie Chung with my dad, and that was it. So, but it is definitely a part of the culture up here is to watch the news. And what's great that it continues to be so powerful up here because there's so many resources and places now to get that news at your fingertips. And yet local news is still so important. But it changes, right? Because look at all the different devices. I think this is what watching TV looks like now. You have it in front of you, you have it on your lap, you have it in your hand, someone next to you has something else on, and it's certainly changed tremendously. Here's a wonderful example. In 2005, this is what the St. Peter's Square looked like when the Pope was announced. And in 2013, I mean, look at all those mobile devices. So everything is at your fingertips and people want the information now. They don't want to wait. They want it now and they want to interact with it. So this is what TV6, this is what our website looked like when it first started. And you can see that the information is minimal. It's there. There's a few things to click on there, but it's relatively simple. This is what it looks like today. It's packed with all kinds of great information. And if you want to find out about it, it's there. There's the search makes it really easy. But again, people, our viewers, news consumers, they want the information now. They don't want to wait till 6 o'clock or they don't want to wait till the morning. They want it right now. This is just a glimpse of how things have changed. You can see some of the numbers there, how much it's increased. The page views from 2008 to 2019, up 14%. Those unique views, 25 million. Facebook likes, this is outdated a bit. I think we're at like 125,000 now. So all of these are up a little bit. But the growth has been phenomenal. And a lot of this happened in between my stints. So when I first worked at TV6, we were just getting started with all of this. It all went crazy while I was gone and now I'm back. So I was on the other end of it. Here's some success stories from TV6 of just the reach that they've built. This is a Facebook post. This is what May 1st looks like, a video of snow. And it reached 5.4 million people and had 685,000 people engage with it, 53,000 shares. And another one, Guts Frisbee. It just blew up. A lot of people excited about Guts Frisbee. I think we, or maybe you remember this. I certainly remember this when part of Pictured Rocks fell and there were the kayakers there and someone had a drone out. that was a post that got shared and certainly got people talking, because it was just an incredible moment caught on video. And this is kind of where it all began. This is where a lot of the growth happened, was when President Obama visited in 2011. And then there was the active in the evening. You got your newspaper, you were waiting for the news. Are you all, am I still there? Am I staying connected?
Yeah, something happened with it where it all reconnected.
Okay.
No.
We're okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll just keep going. I don't know if I don't know what. Again, I'm not real techie. I should be as I'm talking about this.
That's fine. You can just continue from where you were.
Okay. So again, today, the viewers, they want information now and they want to participate in it. They want to share it. They want to talk about it. They want to comment on it. They want to be a part of it. And then they want to keep updated, right? So this is what we know right now. This is what we know in an hour. This is what we know the next day. And so we're constantly trying to keep things updated. Our viewers are incredible about keeping us updated and saying, hey, check this out, or hey, check that out. We get a lot of our story ideas from social media and from our viewers that are keeping us informed and keeping us in the right direction. It's great. Weather. There is no better topic up here than weather. It connects people on so many levels. A major snowstorm, yeah, it's horrible, but it's also, we're all experiencing it together. I love them. They're one of my favorite things about living up here. We're all out snowblowing together, shoveling together, and everybody's sharing the photos and the videos, and we want to see what's happening here. Again, we hear a lot about national news and what's happening on that, but local news is different. It's not viewed the same way. I believe that there is still such a power in local news, it's so necessary. So weather, though, is a huge piece of that. Let's see. The Ryan Report, #1 rated show in the weekend block. Again, viewers want local. There's all of the national programming happening on the weekends, and yet the Ryan Report remains the #1 show. And here's just a glimpse of how our news programming rates up here. This is in the morning, and it says the late news, but the late news repeats on the weekends, so that's what that is there. But you can see in the mornings, if people have the TV on, they're watching the morning news or the late news repeat. And same goes for the evening news. These top 4 slots make up the 4 of the programs here at TV6. So that's really awesome. I'm not completely done. Sorry. Let me unshare. That's just the end of this slide. So in that, you can kind of just see how it's grown, how it's changed. The topic of this day was bringing news to the UP, and I think what's important there is that the news is here. This week has been just a wild news week, but it's seeing what's happening on the national level and then finding out how it impacts all of us here in the Upper Peninsula and telling those stories. We know what's going on. We can turn on any number of national news programs, but the way that we connect to those is to localize it, and that's what's important. So, the governor yesterday, she announced that she's pushing to push for the mask mandate to become an actual law through the Michigan legislature. Okay, but what does that mean for somebody here? What what's the impact of that? So there's lots of ways that we continue to bring the news and keep Upper Michigan informed. And I just think right now, there's never been a more important time to be informed for families. I have two children myself. I mean, moms and dads and everybody, they're waking up every morning, making major decisions for their families, for themselves, and to be able to make the best decision, it's to have the best information available. And so when we come on in the morning news, that's what we try to think about is what do they need, what do we need to know so that we can make those good decisions for ourselves. And that's why when I said in my bio, I've never felt news has never felt more important. I think the news has been questioned a lot, especially in the last couple of years of its relevance. And I don't think it's ever been more relevant and more necessary. And I hope as time goes on that people realize that there's anybody can share anything, can write anything, can put anything out into the world, but that doesn't make it real and it doesn't make it true. But I think your local news stations are the ones that are working to really find the truth and to get the information. It's not always easy, and it's not always, we're not always able to share the full story or all of it right away, but we certainly do what we can when we're able. And so anyway, that is kind of my spiel today. Don't give up on your local news programming. I just think there's so much power there.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Eric, you have a slideshow, or just going to be speaking?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Charles.
Do you have a slideshow, or are you just going to be speaking?
No, I have some slides, yes.
Very good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share a screen here. And you should have it now?
Yes, it's showing up.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. This is a thrill to be here and to be presenting with Elizabeth. I will tell you that sometimes we tend to think of folks who are on air as news personalities or media personalities, but it really goes way, way, way beyond that. And I think if we take a look, for example, at what Elizabeth did just a short time ago with documenting her trip to the Porkies and the experiences there, what folks in media try to do is get information to people in a way that relates to their daily lives. They ask the questions that we want to have asked if we were there ourselves. They're providing a glimpse and a look at some of those experiences. And for the last 46 years, I've really felt fortunate to be able to work with not only the folks here at WNMU, TV and FM, but also our local media in the Upper Peninsula area. The collaboration, the things that we all do together to help bring news and information, cultural enrichment, all of these things to people in the Upper Peninsula is important not only to the folks who are doing it, but we've heard from folks who are consumers that they like it as well. And it's the local content that Elizabeth was talking about that really makes the difference. So what I'd like to do here for a few moments is step back a bit and talk about the world of broadcasting, its history, and the metamorphosis that's taking place as we undergo significant changes in the digital world. And we really can't begin that discussion unless we first talk about spectrum. And I promise that this is not going to be a conversation about technical stuff, but we really can't avoid this particular conversation because it lies at the core of everything broadcasting. And if you take a look at what we all remember from our physics classes, that spectrum includes not only radio waves, but also the visible light that we look at, the invisible light, all the things, the X-rays and all of the technologies that we're using. What we're talking about is that portion way down at the lower frequency that we use here for broadcasting. And if you take a look at some of the services that are provided with that spectrum, I think you'll recognize some of these. For example, if you're a boater and you have a radio on your boat, you're using spectrum in order to do those communications. Radios, we all have radios in our homes or in our cars. We need spectrum in order to transmit that audio signal. Television, of course, requires spectrum. Communications, our cell phones, our satellite technologies, it all uses spectrum in different wavelengths. And if you're the FCC, this is what you have to look at and manage. And what I've done here is taken blocks of spectrum and identified where some of the communication services are located. For example, the AM and FM radio, the VHF and UHF TV band. And what happened here in the last 10 years was a transference of some of that spectrum from the traditional spectrum holders, the broadcasters, to the cell companies. And that's what we're taking a look at right here, where that little polka dot blue square is. It's the upper end of the VHF TV band that was removed from television broadcasters and turned over through an auction to cell companies. So truth in advertising here, if you're ever wondering why you pay so much for your cell phone bill, it's because in part they have to deal with spectrum. And the digital conversion is what drove that. There was a whole set of campaigns that took place back in the mid to late 2000s up through 2010. And I want to play for you just one of the promotions that helped people understand what they were going to need to do in order to navigate this digital transition.
No, you can even watch it in that old TV. Well, not old, mature. But you will need a digital converter like this one. Is it expensive? No. If you ask for a government coupon, you'll save $40. Does everybody need one? No. Those of us who have satellite or cable don't need anything. But if I don't get a digital converter, I'll have no TV, no news, no novela. Without the digital converter, you'll be left with nothing. What? I gotta make a choice right now. Tell your friends and your family.
I just want to check here. James, did you folks have the audio on that? Or
I did
Charles?
have the audio. Yeah, I did have the audio.
Okay, very good. Great. So that was the first digital conversion that took place, where we were shifting from an analog system to a digital system. And it created a lot of confusion and consternation for people wondering, what do I have to do to get my new digital TV signal? But because of some diligence on the part of broadcasters and perseverance on the part of viewers, we were able to successfully navigate that transition. And it did have some consequences. If you take a look at what happens to a TV station during that kind of a transition, Channel 3, WJMN TV, for example, was what we call a low-band VHF station. And they had a footprint represented by that dotted line. When they moved to Channel 48, which is a UHF channel, they actually ended up losing some coverage as a part of that, because higher frequencies take more energy to cover the same broadcast pattern. Likewise, Channel 6, which we all know today still as WLUC Channel 6, is actually on the TV dial Channel 35. It shifted from a VHF channel to a UHF channel. And as a result, their coverage pattern changed. WNMU TV was a Channel 13. We actually moved down on the band to a Channel 8, and you can see that the footprint was just about the same as a part of that conversion. So one of the things that broadcasters had to contend with when they were changing channels was, how are we going to make sure that viewers are still able to get our signal? And in some cases, they increased the power of their station. In others, they had to look at some alternate means, for example, streaming or cable systems, in order to make sure that people who once had their signal were still able to receive it. When we talk about taking that spectrum and transferring it from the broadcaster over to the cell phone companies who needed it. There was an auction that took place, and that auction was really kind of interesting. In fact, if you look at the last auction that recently took place, it raised $45 billion in revenue for the federal government. So essentially, taking that money that broadcasters, pardon me, I'm sorry, taking the spectrum that broadcasters have, selling it to the cell phone companies, that money was used in part to help pay for the move that broadcasters had in converting to digital, but at the same time, making sure that we were able to efficiently use some of that radio frequency spectrum. And what's going to happen here as a result of it? Well, first of all, we're looking now at mobile broadcasts, and that is something that a lot of people are very interested in. Viewers actually prefer to get content on demand. And what we're going to be seeing here with the next conversion that's going to be taking place in a few years is the option for viewers to get TV on their cell phone, but in addition, to watch it anytime, any place. In a sense, we're going to be transferring from a linear distribution method to a nonlinear system, which allows programs to be received on demand, and that's going to make it more convenient for people who consume media. Mobile devices is something that you're going to begin to see in cell phones, a TV tuner actually installed on that mobile device so that you can watch TV. And here's how all that is actually going to end up working. You'll see that the TV broadcaster is still going to have a transmitter like they always have, but instead of just simply transmitting to an antenna on the home, they're also going to be able to transmit to other devices, whether it's in a vehicle or a computer, a cell phone. All of these devices are going to have the capability of receiving TV signals. It's going to open up brand new opportunities for broadcasters as they begin to look at multiple channels. In fact, if you think about, for example, TV6 has multiple channels, WNMU-TV has multiple channels. Most broadcasters are programming more than one stream of content, and that's all because the digital spectrum that they're broadcasting with gives them the opportunity to carve out that spectrum into different paths and broadcast individual programs. One of the things that I wanted to just share with you was what's happening in the receiver part of television. You can see that on the far bottom right of that picture, we're right now in what's called the HD format, the 1080p. In resolution terms, that's what you're watching when you tune in your TV. Some people have gone and purchased 4K TVs, essentially doubling the quality of the picture that exists on an HD TV. But take a look at what's happening here in the future. We have 5K all the way up to 8K broadcasts that are going to be coming. All of that's made possible because as technology improves, the compression technologies get better, and we're able to transmit more information in the same bandwidth or the same part of the spectrum that we've been allocated by the FCC, and we're able to deliver higher resolution content. And what does that mean for people who are watching TV at home? Well, for example, when you're watching a football game, and you're looking at that football that's down on the field, you can actually see the strings on the football. Or if you're watching a musical performance and you're looking at the violin section, you're able to see much higher resolution, much more detail in that picture, and it just becomes a more enjoyable experience. So if you can look back from where we are today to 1954, who would have thought that flat screen TV that's pictured on the page there would actually be a reality? Somebody was really thinking ahead, and it just shows you how technology has developed and it's improved over the years in a way that many of us just never thought possible. So the last part of my presentation here, I wanted to talk briefly about content, because you can have all the technology in the world, and without content, it just doesn't really matter all that much. And Northern Michigan University has been investing a lot of its time and energy and resources into providing content. As Elizabeth had mentioned, our programs here like Media Meet and some of the other public affairs programs that we air, the collaborations that we do with TV6 on some of the news programs, all of those things feed into this content that we're also craving and interested in. Sports is another part that is becoming very popular. There's obviously no shortage of it, except maybe now during our COVID-19 world. But in essence, we're taking this as a call to help train the next generation of broadcasters, and that's part of the program that we're offering here at NMU. For those of you who've never seen the inner workings of a sports broadcast, let me play a short clip for you that highlights what goes on inside the truck in producing a sports telecast.
Okay, so then we're just going to come up some black for a little 10-second segment just to score more outside. Just the score. Will that be on Fox or the? Yeah, you can. Just let's make sure it's halftime right now. And then followed by break 6. You have followed by break 6. Right now. Good. It's going to be break 6. Okay. Okay. Score and then like 10 seconds. Okay. Stand by one. Stand by score. 3, 2, 1. Quarterback attack. Play score. 36-6. Stand by break 6. Football game. Marching band out on the field. The Shamrocks have an answer. We will find out soon. 8 fans here by School Football on Detroit. Break 6.
So that gives you a little bit of a glimpse what happens inside the truck. What you're looking at are a combination of staffers and students here at Northern Michigan University, learning the trade, getting real-time experience in broadcasting and sports production work. We all know that the Upper Michigan is just someplace really special, to use that commonly used phrase that TV6 has coined, but it allows us to produce content like you cannot find anywhere else. And one of the opportunities that I wanted to highlight was the chance for us to have students working on a production on the UP200. And here's a short clip from a program that we did a few years ago on that event.
It is the dead of winter in Upper Michigan. But downtown Marquette is alive with excitement. More than 6,000 fans have gathered to witness the start of the UP200 sled dog race. Mushers and their dogs are showered with applause and flashbulbs as they make their way through the starting chute on Washington Street. While the dogs and mushers are the stars of this event, volunteers are the heroes. This is their story, a story of people pulling together to create one of winter's greatest spectacles.
Well, those opportunities, happen frequently. Whether it's sled dog racing or other events that take place here in the Upper Peninsula, it's really all about storytelling and doing it in a way that makes sense to people and shares with them, especially for those who can't actually witness an event like that live. It gives them a flavor of what's going on in their community. Location is everything. And as we talked about with the sled dog races, sometimes you get to go to some unique spots to produce programs. Scuba diving is great in Lake Superior. We have the beauty of Lake Superior's cold, deep, fresh water, and it's literally home to some of the finest shipwrecks anywhere in the world. One of those wrecks is Qatar Mesquite up in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And NMU a few years ago was fortunate enough to be able to work with the Keweenaw Underwater Preserve in preserving Qatar Mesquite for future generations. And here's a short clip of what that one looked like.
It's fascinating. It's like diving into something and exploring, I suppose, a cave or something that you just, you've got the unknown in front of you, and it's exciting. The mistake of any shipwreck has a special calling of its own, but there's something about shipwrecks in Superior, I think, that stand out. And this is going to be an interesting. This one's going to stand out more so than the other just because of its unique quality. Over 550 shipwrecks lie at the bottom of mighty Lake Superior, but only one is intentionally here. Only the Coast Guard cutter Mesquite can claim this superior destiny.
Just a short program note on that. As a scuba diver, I was thrilled to be able to work on that program. And there was just something neat about being able to go to work when we were producing that. And my office, if you will, was 80 feet below the surface diving that shipwreck. Another one that we were really excited about had to do with the gray wolf, Michigan's gray wolf. In this picture, you see Professor Dwight Brady, Dr. Brady, and one of his students, Nick Van Court, who was a biology major, but also interested in video production, worked on this program to help document the history of the gray wolf. And here's a short promo from that event.
Locally produced 1-hour special, Tuesday, December 7th at 8 p.m. only on WLUC-TV 13.
So that gives you, I think, a little bit of a feel for some of the opportunities when you're getting outside of the studio. And the last opportunity I wanted to share with you is the one for students who choose to become involved in the art of broadcasting. I want to play a clip for you here, and then on the flip side, I'll share with you an interesting story about what happened here.
They've been getting ready for this one all day. The Northern Michigan fans have been tailgating. Don't forget the Michigan Tech fans will have made the short jump down to rock it out tonight inside the Dome. In fact, it seems like perhaps the entire UP is in the house tonight. Why would they be? A fantastic matchup for you. 2-1 Michigan Tech. Thank God. The Northern Michigan Wildcats, both teams looking to bounce back after tough losses last week.
So that particular broadcast was a Fox Sports event. They actually came to Marquette with all of their trucks and equipment. And as they typically do, they'll hire local crews in order to fill some of the positions. One of the students who worked for us here at WNMU she was actually a freshman, was very interested in participating, but scared to death to try and see, whether or not this is something that she would enjoy. And so she signed up and appeared at the Superior Dome during that broadcast and walked into the truck, and they assigned her to be the red hat. And the producer said, "Do you know what the red hat is?" And she said, "No, not really." He said, "Well, I'm going to give you a clipboard and a headset. Your job is to go out on the field and you're going to cue the refs for the TV timeouts. That's all you have to do." So she thought, piece of cake, I think I can manage that. So she walked out onto the field, 50-yard line. And the head ref came up and looked at her and said, "Are you the red hat for tonight?" And she said, "I am." He said, do you understand the power that you have in tonight's broadcast?" And then she started to get nervous and she said, "No, not really." He said, "Well, you've got two teams that are ready to go after each other, a stadium full of fans, and about 10,000 viewers across the Midwest whose experience depends on when your hand goes up and when it goes down, when you cue the ref to stop the game." And she said, and he turned and walked away. And she said, "My knees were shaking and I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into." But the truth is, she did a fantastic job, and that sort of sold her on broadcasting. She went on to become a broadcast major and ultimately is now working for one of the crews that does sports broadcasts here in the Midwest. So I think when we talk about the opportunities that broadcasting has, they're amazing. And for a younger generation that wants to get started in it, there will always be a need for content. But as viewers, it sometimes is helpful for us just simply to understand what goes on behind the scene. And hopefully this has given you a little bit of that experience. So with that, I will turn it back over to Charles here and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, now that you saw the how it all comes together, the really neat thing about the era that we're in is you can watch the TV6 news anywhere. We have people that message me in the mornings from Florida. They're watching our news. They live in Florida. And that's pretty incredible. It truly is at your fingertips. And it's because of all of those techie things, like I said, that Eric does such an amazing job going through, that people are able to do that. And that's what makes it this big full circle. And I'm fascinated by that. I think that's just incredible.
Elizabeth, you're kind of a unique example. And I'm just curious, I have to ask the question here publicly. You started in broadcasting and then you migrated away. What was it that caused you to say, I want to get back into the business?
Well, like Charles said when he read my intro, I've been in the news industry my whole life. I watched my mom and my aunt, and I've heard stories about my grandmother. News was such a powerful piece of our house. We watched it together. My parents talked about it. We talked about it. And so I was a news anchor for Halloween when I was like 6. Like I walked around with a microphone. Like that is just it. So when I started in it, I mean, like I said, I loved it. I didn't leave because I was tired of the news industry. I left to take some time to raise my family, to dive a little bit deeper into a different aspect of the community. And I didn't know if I would ever get back, but I never take anything off the table because you just never know where your path could lead. And if you just keep an open mind, amazing things can happen. And I was working at Northern, and the job at WNMU came along, and the opportunity to tell stories and to be a part of that process of informing and helping people. That's the part that I can play in the community. When we watched as the coronavirus pandemic started happening and I was working at WNMU, you started to see people in the community really step forward and do whatever they could do, whether that was putting a sign in their window, making a meal for a frontline worker, sewing masks. I couldn't do any of those things, but I could put together a program every week with some really amazing information that I hoped help people get through a really challenging, tough time. Whether that was just giving them good information, maybe it was providing them something that made them smile or gave them a little snippet of hope. So I feel like that's where I can contribute, and that's what brought me back. Is there's just a feel good in that. It's in my blood.
That's awesome.
All right, thank you both so much for presenting. At the moment, we don't have any questions in the Q&A. If anyone in the chat at the moment has something that they want to put in there, feel free to go ahead and do that. But thank you both so much for presenting. You guys both did a wonderful job.
Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, I don't believe we'll be getting any questions. You guys both, I mean, did such a good job that they don't really have anything left to ask. So the next session that we'll be having